watching Let's Chat.
Welcome back to Let's Chat, everyone. We are talking more right now about the financial impact from COVID-19. And joining us now is Chris Hopkins he is the VP at Barnett Company. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Kay, good morning. How are you this morning?
We're hanging in there. Chris, let's talk a little bit about unemployment here in Chattanooga versus the rest of the country. What are we seeing right now?
Well, we expect unemployment numbers to be really pretty bad. I don't think that's a surprise, but nationwide we may see in excess of 20% unemployment for April. The problem is in an economy like Chattanooga, we're much more heavily dependent on service industries, tourism, et cetera. So Chattanooga is going to be harder hit than the rest of the country. It would not be surprising to see unemployment in April in Chattanooga between 25 and 30%. Now that's a temporary number, obviously, but we're going to get hit harder than the average city in the nation.
Chris, what kind of economic damage can we expect to see over the next 2 to 3 quarters?
Well, I expect that April and May and June are going to be terrible. We're going to see probably an annualized decline in GDP or economic growth in the neighborhood of 30–40% annualized rate of decline. Nothing like that since the Great Depression. However, we know this is an infestation, it's temporary. We kind of expect it to take maybe a year to 18 months for unemployment to get back down in the 6–7% range. So we do expect some longer term impact. We do expect a spring back, but obviously there's going to be some permanent changes in the economy. So we really can't anticipate an immediate spring back and recovery, but just anticipate that unemployment is going to stay in double digits probably for the better part of the next certainly 9 to 12 months.
Chris, how will this impact small businesses? Will this force many of them to close?
No, there's no doubt about it. We're already beginning to see evidence of that. Now, of course, the government passed the payroll protection plan, which is aimed at trying to help small businesses, give them a little short-term assistance, certainly to help keep employees on the payroll. But, you know, many small companies operate month to month. This kind of damage to their revenues, they just aren't going to be able to survive. So there's no question that there'll be casualties, certainly disproportionately among small businesses, and that's an unfortunate outcome of the COVID infestation. But it's a sad reality.
Very sad situation right now. Let's talk a little bit about the food supply chain problems and how it's going to impact the economy as well.
Yeah, I think we've all observed the immediate impacts where at first we couldn't get toilet paper, and then of course there were certain foodstuffs we couldn't get a hold of. There were shortage of eggs and so forth. And the irony here is that in some cases there are shortages in the grocery stores, but there's a surplus at the wholesale level. So you're seeing this ironic situation of the grocery store is out of, let's say, running short on eggs, but egg producers are destroying their product. Milk is being dumped literally in lagoons because the supply channels just can't absorb this kind of disruption. So now the next thing we're going to see, I'm afraid, is going to be spot shortages of meat and poultry. And this, of course, is a result of the outbreak of the virus in certain meat processing plants. So as a result of having to close several of the nation's largest meat and pork producing plants, we're likely to see a 20–25% decline in the output of meat. And that is also leading to shortages in the grocery stores. So these things will all correct over time, but you can't shift immediately. Let's say, for example, you're an egg producer, but you sell in bulk to restaurants. You're not set up to package a dozen eggs at a time in a styrofoam container. So these things will correct over time, but it doesn't happen overnight. So expect to see additional spot shortages of meat produce, certainly over the next 2 or 3 months.
And finally, Chris, how will the economy look differently once COVID-19 is no longer around?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, we're all trying to guess how that's going to play out. So I think there's pluses and minuses. Obviously, some things are going to change semi-permanently. There are going to be changes in the travel industry, for example. We're all learning that We don't prefer it, but there's things we can do on Skype or on Zoom from our offices that will reduce business travel. Now, the other side is there are going to be some great opportunities arise from this. Certainly, some technological applications. We're going to see some businesses that really benefit from the longer term shift in how we do business and how we tend not to, we're not going to travel as much. We're not going to congregate quite as closely together, at least for the foreseeable future. But with every crisis comes opportunity, and so we're trying to remain positive and look at where will the economy and workers benefit from these longer term shifts. So expect to see obviously some damage longer term to some industries, some sectors, but really tremendous opportunity in others.
Thank you, Chris, for joining us and giving us some insight this morning. Always good to see you. If you folks would like to get in touch with Chris at Barnett Company, they're located on 1300 Broad Street.